This pyramid was built in 2600 BCE. That's 1500 years. That's as far as from us to the Byzantine Empire. We didn't build Constantinople. The Israelites didn't build the pyramids.
Bruce stands and continues climbing. Behind him, the arid landscape sprawls far and wide.
Whoever built them, it must have been dangerous. Trying to climb one is so hazardous, the government closed them to the public after dozens of people died trying to scale them. We had to get special permission, and truth be told, I was scared to death.
As they reach the top, Bruce holds up his fist triumphantly.
Welcome to top.
Thank you. So how high is this?
143 meters.
Wow, that's over 400 feet.
Yeah.
Now this is flat. Whoops.
Yeah.
And why is that one?
This is the limestone. 148 meters, this pyramid.
So someone took the top off of this one.
Yeah, probably 3 meters in high, in fact.
Oh, this is 3 meters high. Now, which way is Cairo?
This way, okay.
So can you see the Nile from here?
Yeah, look for this way.
The guide points over the sprawling city of Cairo.
In one way, the Bible and the pyramids have a lot in common. They're both this great monument of antiquity, but in a crucial way, they're also different. Because Egyptian religion did not survive, and biblical religion did. Why? Because in their journey, the Israelites took the best of Mesopotamian culture, the best of Egyptian culture, and introduced the notion of an abstract, universal God.
With limited new ideas and faced with greater powers to the north and east, ancient Egypt would eventually collapse. In the Bible, one pharaoh also feared a potentially powerful enemy within.
Exodus chapter 1, verse 8.
Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and in the event of war, that they also join our enemies and fight against us." Therefore they set taskmasters over them, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses.
In a workyard, a stonecutter taps a serrated hammer on a slab. Now, Bruce crosses a city street to a train station.
To understand this part of the story, I went to the Cairo train station to catch a ride to where the ancient cities of Pithom and Ramses were located.
Bruce enters the depot.
Once, these cities had been bustling centers of international commerce, which would have explained the large gathering there of immigrant labor, including, perhaps, the Israelites.
Now on a train platform, a man rings a bell. A locomotive eases forward. In one of the cars, Bruce sits facing Gabala.
On the train, I re-teamed with Professor Gabala to explore the Delta area where the Israelites may have worked for the Pharaoh on his massive construction projects. I asked him if Ramses II would have used foreigners to help him build his cities.
Well, he didn't need to, because the outsiders were already in Egypt. Because at that time, foreigners came to Egypt either as prisoners of war or even were sold in slavery from Syria, Palestine. And most of them will have settled in the Eastern Delta, and that's where his capital was.
So when we read in the opening chapters of Exodus about the Israelites living in Goshen, building the store cities of Pithom and Ramses, they are part of this network of foreigners who are helping in these construction efforts.
Well, that's true. And in the heart of the land of Goshen, Wadi Tumalat, you find Pi Ramses, the capital of the Ramessides.
The train speeds on.
We headed first toward the ancient city of Pithom.
On the map, a red line traces a short northeastern route from Cairo to Goshen.
Less than 50 miles northeast of Cairo, and mostly quiet today, Goshen had once been a thriving area of agriculture and commerce.
Bruce walks amid ruins. A massive toppled statue lies on its back.
So this is Ramses II?
Yes, that's another one of his statues.
So how many statues were carved of him in his life?
Oh, hundreds.
Ramses II was a master builder. He built the great temple at Abu Simbel, enlarged the temples at Karnak and Luxor, and wasn't above carving his own name over those of earlier pharaohs.
The stones were brought here from the other city.
They called all the stones from the ancient capital, they brought it here. That would be the main entrance to the main temple.
We entered the gates, which would have had huge wooden doors covered with bronze. Even in ruins, the architect's genius, the sophisticated planning, and the skilled work of the laborers who actually built this city was clearly evident.
So this is one long narrative here.
Inscription here that shows that he is the king of the lord of the two lands, and that's one of his titles.
So this is Ramses'
Yes,
title.
yes. Wesir, Ma'at, Ra, Setep, and Ra.
Ra being the sun.
The sun god here and there. So he's the chosen one of the god Ra.
So if this is his name, then this is his picture.
That's his picture there, and he's giving offerings to the creator god Atum. And again, you can see his cartouches there. The title that we saw before and his actual name, Ramses.
They leave the toppled pillars hieroglyphs.
Many scholars consider Ramses II to be the pharaoh of the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. He's usually cast as the cruel king in films like The Ten Commandments.
Now they ride in a jeep.
His son, Merenptah, is also a likely candidate. The earliest reference to Israel in the ancient Near East comes from an inscription by Merenptah.
Can they still get more than one crop a year here?
Well, they always did. The delta is different from Upper Egypt.
And would there have been more trees here in the past, or this has pretty much always been the same?
I think, and in ancient Egypt, this would have been mostly marshland, actually.
In a field, tall clay cones are dotted with holes in stick perches.
In this green field, there was little left of the great city of Pi-Ramses. Farmers raised pigeons here, where once there stood monuments to kings.
In Upper Egypt, these temples are huge. They're still standing. You can see all the ruins. How come there's nothing here?
Because things are different in Upper Egypt. The Upper Egypt, there you find the temples are in the desert. And that's why you don't even have stone here. The stone had to be important. For instance, the stone, this is limestone. It would have come from the vicinity of Cairo. That's about 100 kilometers to the south of here.
If they weren't made from stone, then what were they made with?
Mud brick.
So when we read in the opening chapters of Exodus that the Israelites were in Pithom and Ramses, building the store cities with mud bricks,
it would have been here.
Now, in a workyard, a worker stirs a pit of mud, then scoops it into a pile where a co-worker mixes it with straw.
In the very place where the Israelites are said to have toiled under an oppressive pharaoh, the mud bricks once used in ancient Egyptian cities are still made in the same time-honored way.
A worker smooths the mud in a rectangular mold, removes the mold, and leaves it lying in sunlight. Now, Bruce visits a maze of roofless buildings.
The ruins of this ancient village for laborers offer clues as to how the Israelites might have lived while working for the pharaoh more than 3,000 years ago.
these houses were made from a mixture of stone and mud?
Mud brick, yeah.
All mud brick.
All mud brick, yeah.
Now, tell me about one of these houses here.
This is the way to the house. And this is the entrance saloon for the house here.
So is this covered or this is inside?
No, it's covered, yeah. And this here, the kitchen. Another room here.
Okay, what
Yeah,
happens
there's
here?
2 rooms here. One room for the children and one room for the man and his wife.
There's one more room back here.
Bruce maneuvers around knee and shoulder high walls.
Yeah, this is the end of the house here.
All the things you're not using, you put
Yeah,
them away like
you
the
put-
closet.
Yeah, closet, yeah.
Bruce walks a narrow pathway.
Most scholars agree that although the Israelites were forced to labor under harsh conditions, they had homes and were not destitute.
Bruce faces us.
Later, when the Israelites leave Egypt and go into the desert, they also think back fondly on their time here as one of abundance and good food. It's something we can all relate to. While you're in the middle of something, you may complain about it, but later you wax nostalgic for it.
A sunset glows through low, fluffy clouds.
Somewhere here in the seemingly timeless landscape of Egypt's delta marshes, a new chapter in the Bible begins. The story of the Israelites' deliverance from Egypt.
Bruce walks through tall grass and reeds. He faces us.
The book of Genesis has 4 major characters: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, as well as Adam and Eve and Noah. One character dominates the next 4 books, Exodus through Deuteronomy. He, of course, is Moses. He's by far the central character in the Hebrew Bible, yet he's one of the most human heroes ever created.
Now, moss grows on still water, encroaching thin reeds and stalks of tall grass. Bruce sloshes through the ankle-deep water.
Among the reeds and shallow waters, the story opens with a mother desperate to save her newborn son. The Pharaoh is fearful that the Israelites are becoming too numerous and orders that all newborn Israelite boys be drowned in the Nile. One mother defies the Pharaoh and gives her child the chance to live.
Now, at the water's edge, a woman gathers a bundle of reeds.
When she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and he became her son.
With Bruce.
She takes the boy home and names him Moses. The word seems to come from the Egyptian word to be born of and is the same root used in the Pharaoh Tutmosis and Ramses. Either way, the Bible here takes a step closer to the heart of Egypt. Joseph is second in command to the Pharaoh. Moses is raised in the Pharaoh's house.
Exodus chapter 2, verse 11.
Now it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. So he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from the face of the Pharaoh.
A statue of Ramses fades into a vast mountain range. Now Gabala drives the jeep.
Moses eventually arrives in the land of Midian, an ancient territory believed to be in what is now southern Jordan. In Midian, Moses finds a wife and works as a shepherd. Then, one day, God, unannounced, speaks to Moses from inside a burning bush.
Now at a campfire.
God asks Moses to liberate the enslaved and suffering Israelites from Egypt and deliver them to the promised land.
Bruce sits with a Bedouin.
For these Bedouin tribesmen, the burning bush is one of their oral traditions, passed down from generation to generation.
God didn't speak inside the bush. He used the burning bush to attract Moses to this place so he could speak to him.
And when Moses heard that voice, was he scared?
Yes, he was. But God told him not to be afraid. He told him that I'm your God and you are my messenger, so hear what I have to say. God ordered him to go to the Pharaoh and tell him about this faith. He then went to Egypt and decided on a day to see who's stronger, God or the Pharaoh.
Now at the Luxor Temple, lights shine up from the ground, illuminating the statues and monuments.
The stage is now set for an epic showdown, Moses versus the Pharaoh. A reluctant representative of God would confront the most powerful man on earth, the ruler of the entire Egyptian empire.
Daytime, Bruce faces us.
Now Moses, who at the burning bush tells God that he stutters and is afraid to speak, rises and goes to the palace, and the Bible says, early in the morning, stands before the Pharaoh and utters one of the most famous lines in the Bible, "Let my people go."
Sunlight shines on a smiling statue.
The Pharaoh dismisses the plea of Moses and increases the suffering and torment of the Israelites.
A man makes mud bricks, a woman turns a millstone.
He orders them to work twice as hard.
In a field, a farmer cultivates, dragging a log plow. A second struggles with a team of oxen.
God then initiates a series of signs and wonders, designed to persuade the Pharaoh to set the Israelites free.
The Nile turns red.
He turns the waters of Egypt to blood and follows with even more plagues. There is a swarm of locusts, a rain of frogs, a lashing of hail, and an outbreak of disease, before darkness is made to cover the land.
Statues sit in the temple's dim light.
The Pharaoh refuses to back down, and God sends Moses to deliver an unimaginable threat.
So Moses makes one final trip to the palace and issues his most chilling threat.
Bruce opens his Bible.
"Thus says the Lord," declares Moses, "at midnight, every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on his throne, to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the millstones. And a loud cry shall be heard, in all the land of Egypt.
Now a red stripe marks a building above its door.
Still, the Pharaoh will not let the Israelites go. God instructs Moses to have the Israelites mark their homes with the blood of a sacrificial lamb.
Over the Luxor temple, a parchment graphic displays Exodus chapter 12, verse 13.
Now the blood shall be a sign for you on your houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be on you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations.
At a table, children and adults clap rhythmically. Now Bruce sits at a cluttered desk covered with books and papers.
Ever since antiquity, people have tried to figure out a naturalistic explanation for the plagues. One theory held that a comet passed too close to Earth, and another theory held that this volcano went off in the Mediterranean and filled the sky with dust. But this one ecologist did this study, which I think is really interesting. She said that there was a huge flood down in Ethiopia, which sent an abnormally high amount of water up into the Nile, and that caused a lot of algae in the water, and the algae killed the fish and the frogs, and then the frogs crawled up on the earth and attracted anthrax. That's not anthrax. Do I have anthrax? Well, the anthrax killed these cows, and the smell then attracted the flies. And I think the 8th plague is the locust. This is the locust, and I can't remember what caused that. This is interesting, but I do think it begs the question about the 10th plague, the killing of the firstborn son. What caused that?
Bruce walks out on a veranda overlooking Cairo. He gazes thoughtfully toward the night sky, then faces us.
Finding a scientific explanation for the plagues is appealing. If we can prove that one detail of the story is true, sure, the entire book is true. But I think these theories actually undermine the Bible. If the plagues can be explained by natural phenomena, where does that leave God? I think I, like a lot of people, enjoy these theories because it's a lot easier to think about them than to think about the central character in the entire book. The Bible reveals exactly what caused the 10 plagues. God caused them. And if we're going to develop a relationship with that God the story suggests, we have to break away from our surroundings and set off for something new.
Now on the map, a red line stretches east from Goshen to Lake Timsah at the edge of the Sinai.
We set out to follow the path of the Israelites, heading east toward the Sinai.
Bruce travels a highway.
With the Exodus underway, the Pharaoh changes his mind about letting the Israelites leave. He sets off with his army in hot pursuit. The Israelites soon arrive at a body of water and get trapped. They need a miracle to cross the water. But which body of water was it?
As the Jeep drives a winding road through desert hills, Bruce looks up from his map, leans over the seat, and faces us.
There are 5 possible bodies of water the Israelites might have crossed. You've got the Mediterranean, the marshy area just south of there, Timsah, the Bitter Lakes, or the Red Sea itself. Now, the biblical term for this body of water in Hebrew is Yam Suf. Yam Suf doesn't mean Red Sea. It actually means Sea of Reeds. Red Sea is a mistranslation that first was introduced in the Greek a couple hundred years before Jesus, from there into Latin, and then into English with the King James Bible in 1611. The reed in question is papyrus, and papyrus is a freshwater reed. That would seem to rule out the Mediterranean marsh and the Red Sea, leaving Timsah and the Bitter Lakes. I'm sort of fond of Timsah because it's this shallow lake, and you can imagine on a windy day the Israelites wading across and the chariots coming and getting stuck in the mud.
They drive past a lake. Now locals row a boat, its stern piled high with nets.
When I arrived at Lake Timsah, it suddenly hit me. I had been so excited about which body of water the Israelites crossed, but I had missed the larger meaning of the story.
Bruce sits reading his Bible.
The Exodus marks a fateful turning point in the life of the Israelites.
On shore, Bruce faces us.
At this point, the Israelites are trapped. They have this huge body of water on one side and 600 Egyptian chariots closing in on them from the delta. The people go rushing to Moses and they say, "Was it for lack of graves in Egypt that you brought us out into the wilderness to die?" And Moses has this great line. He says, "Hold your peace. Don't worry. Be patient. God will deliver you."
On a quay, families gather at boats. Fishermen troll with their nets.
Being here, I could sense the fear and apprehension they must have felt when they faced this tremendous obstacle. I decided to cross the water myself.
Bruce approaches a boatman.
How are you? Can we go across?
Bruce gets in the boat and faces its owner.
So what do you fish for?
Moses, Bori, Balti, Tuba.
Do you have some Moses fish? What's it look like? Can I see it?
The fishermen show Bruce a crate with a few fish in it.
So what is it? It's a kind of, looks almost like a kind of flounder. So why is it called Moses fish?
When the sea was split in half, it split the fish into two sides, one white, one black.
The bottom side of the Moses fish is pale white and the top a glistening black. Now the fishermen row the boat out onto the lake. The crew consists of 3 men and a boy.